What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with my original segment, Boxingego First Look, a tale of the tape series where I give you guys a sneak peek, a preview of the fight before the fight. Now, a fight I'm really looking forward to, May 27th, IBF champion, back at welterweight, KELL BROOK, realistically, versus The Truth, Errol Spence Jr., Mr. Man Down out of Texas. This is a good fight. This is happening in KELL BROOK's backyard. Sheffield, Bramall Lane is the venue. They have a football team, and it should be an electric crowd. For a while, especially off the heels of Joshua Klitschko, the British fans have been perfect in boxing. Very energetic. They support their countrymen, and they definitely show out and show up in droves to celebrate and cheer on their fighters. So this is a good fight, man. This is a fight a lot of people had doubts. KELL BROOK, he did take a while to pull the trigger. KELL BROOK, in the media, he had stated that he's been wanting a Amir Khan fight, so he was trying to press for that. Then there was issues with the split. Khan who's coming off a knockout to Canelo Alvarez, who just won this weekend versus Chavez Jr. He was trying to take the lion's share. KELL BROOK's like, hey, you got knocked out, I'm the champion. They couldn't agree. KELL BROOK was also trying to get a fight with the legendary Pacquiao and any other big names. His team, he says, wanted him to move up to 154 after this radical weight jump he did. And I called it last year, 2016, the year of quote-unquote daring to be great. Wasn't a big fan of it. And what I mean, of course, I love when fighters dare to be great. However, I don't like the radical weight jumps. I think weight classes are in place for a reason, and we've seen guys like Amir Khan, who only had 3 fights at welterweight, move up all of a sudden to fight Canelo at Canelo weight, 155, no rehydration clause, no experience that high of weight for fight night, right? Not sparring, not headgear, not in the amateur. I'm talking about as a pro, and he got knocked out. KELL BROOK, another person who got stopped. He didn't get stopped as brutally as Amir Khan, but he jumped up and fought the Dragon, the Goliath at middleweight. A guy with almost all the belts, known puncher with a high amateur pedigree, and that was Gennady Golovkin. He did that in September. He did good in spots, but ultimately he sustained an injury in that fight. His eye, the orbital, the area around it was shattered, and he had to undergo surgery after the fight. His corner threw in the towel. So I'm not a fan of the radical weight jumps for that reason. It's one thing if you do, like, let's say Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley jumped up weight classes to face Oscar De La Hoya. That made all the sense in the world, because at the time, if you know your boxing, Shane Mosley was the baddest lightweight on the planet, and he had predominantly knockouts in that division, and nobody could seem to test him really, and he was doing so good. Him being from Pomona, Oscar De La Hoya being from East LA, it made all the sense in the world for them to battle in LA. Again, Shane Mosley had already proven himself to be a distinguished lightweight, and nobody could really even deal with him. So why not pursue a big fight? And you guys are both from LA, you guys are both names, and he ended up winning the fight. But you look at the Khan situation, the KELL BROOK, they came up short. You could say they did good in spots. I thought Khan started off fast. Canelo had to time him and slow him down to the body. KELL BROOK, round 2, he looked really good, and there were some spots where he showed some vulnerabilities in Golovkin that other opponents may not have showed, but ultimately the end was inevitable. TKO, KO, you know what I mean? So I'm just a fan of doing your job at your division, and then if there's nothing else left for that, or you've made enough of an impression, then you move up. And I don't think KELL BROOK has done that at welterweight. I think KELL BROOK is an excellent fighter. He fought Sean Porter, and then he got stabbed. So everybody understood when he took on this mandatory Jojo Dan, a guy that most people knew couldn't beat him, didn't think would be able to beat him, but he wanted to make sure his leg was okay, in working order, and he was mobile, because they said he may not be able to walk after that. So I understood that, but after that he started fighting Frankie Gavin and Kevin Bezier, and fights with people like Brandon Rios, fights with people like Diego Chavez, fights with people like Jesse Vargas. Those are all good fights that would probably tell us more because they're bigger names And for some reason, one reason or another, just like the Devin Alexander situation, those fights fell apart and didn't get past negotiations. Except for the Diego Chavez, I think that fight got past negotiations, and then Kell Brook pulled out with an injury. So I'm not a fan of him jumping up to middleweight. But welterweight is where he's king. He's undefeated at welterweight, and that's where he is at home. And he's a good fighter. He will have to travel back down from 160. He was not on such a restrictive diet going up to middleweight. The weight cut wasn't as impactful, but I've seen recent pictures and it looks like he's coming down nicely. And then ultimately on fight night, we'll be able to see. Now, Errol Spence, he's been on somewhat of a layoff, waiting for this opportunity, but he stayed hungry, stayed disciplined, remained in shape. Some people fear that maybe he overtrained for this fight, just knowing in the back of his mind he was going to be fighting someone, be it Kell Brook, or even if Kell Brook vacated, he would have to fight someone for that IBF strap if, let's say, Kell Brook moved up to 154. Errol Spence last fought in August, and this goes to show you it's been a little bit of a while, because he fought right after the Rio 2016 Olympics when it came on in August. His fight with Leonard Bundu, an actual Olympian, he knocked him out, and that came on immediately after the men's basketball game for the US Olympics, right? And it just goes to show you it's been a while, because somebody who competed and represented the US as far as the boxing program was Shakur Stevenson, who's already turned pro now and had his first fight April 22nd at the StubHub, and he's already fighting again May 20th. So he's, by the time Errol Spence fights, Shakur Stevens will have completed the Olympics, signed with Top Rank, then joined forces with Jay Prince and Andre Ward, had a first pro fight April 22nd, and then he's fighting the same night as Errol Spence, Kell Brook, or actually a week before on May 20th on the Terrence Crawford card. So it's been some time since Errol Spence has stepped foot in the ring, but that fight did good ratings with Leonard Bundu, and what was impressive is that was a barometer fight. We've seen that opponent, Leonard Bundu, in there with another known welterweight who just became a two-time champion. That's one time, Keith Thurman. And Keith Thurman, he started off fresh, knocked Bundu down, hurt him badly, but for whatever reason, he elected to box. And Bundu showed some trickery and craftiness, and just being an Olympian and having that resolve, he found a way to survive, and then he pushed Keith Thurman the distance. And Keith Thurman, it definitely wasn't his most exciting performance, wasn't one of his best performances. Meanwhile, the young hungry lion, Errol Spence Jr., got him out of there and knocked him out in brutal fashion in front of, I think it was 6 million people on NBC immediately after the Olympics. So the stage is set, man. This is a great welterweight fight. You have a guy who is once beaten, but he's undefeated at the division at welterweight. Errol Spence Jr. is undefeated in his pro career. The age is pretty close, and that's the great thing about these fights. I'm telling you, every time I put together these tale of the tapes, and then I look at the actual specs, the age, the reach, and stuff, and most of the things, the fights that we perceive off the top of our head to be 50-50 fights, when I start looking at all the different line items, they're all pretty close. And it's not only a 50-50 fight in our minds, but also on paper it's a 50-50 fight. Now let's take a look at the tale of the tape. Now, Special K, Kell Brook, has a once beaten record. He has a record of 36 wins with 1 loss. Errol Spence Jr., the truth, his record is also currently the truth. He has a record of 21-0. Age, pretty close. Errol Spence Jr. is the younger fighter. He's 27 years old, and Kell Brook is 30 years old, so a 3-year difference. This will be, in the eyes of really everybody, most boxing fans, this will be the big step up, and we have to see how the younger fighter, Errol Spence Jr., rises to the occasion or comes up short, because this is a step up in terms of class. This guy went up to middleweight and really held his own, and even though he was stopped, he was never knocked down or knocked out by the much bigger and powerful Gennady Golovkin. Now the height, very close, because both of these guys are big welterweights. They're big for the division. I can tell their walk around weight off the top of my head. and they have to come down some to make welterweight. It is a process. The height advantage goes to Errol Spence Jr., slightly taller. He's listed at 5'9.5" Kell Brook is listed at 5'9". This is for Kell Brook's welterweight belt, his IBF belt. So the fight is taking place and campaigning at 147 pounds. Great welterweight fight. This is a meaningful fight. Future fights out there, Pacquiao, you got, well, actually Pacquiao Horn, if Jeff Horn pulls a massive upset. Obviously Keith Thurman, you got Sean Porter. Sean Porter's already fought Kell Brook, but it would be the first time fighting Errol Spence if he wins. Lots of action at the welterweight, definitely the most stacked division, or one of the most stacked in boxing. And finally, the reach advantage goes to the taller man, Errol Spence Jr. He has a reach of 72 inches, which is the same exact arm length as Mayweather, even though they fight a little bit different, just a fun ego factoid. And Kell Brook has a reach of 69 inches. So the shorter man, shorter arms, both have a good size to them at welterweight, good mass. May 27th, it goes down. Now this fight will take place on SKYSPORTS in the UK. I believe it'll be a pay-per-view. In the US, this fight will take place on SHOWTIME. The SHOWTIME network has picked this up. Since it'll be on UK time, depending on if you live in the West or East Coast, it'll be on earlier in the day for us. It's a good fight. I'm looking forward to this. This is a welterweight fight. To me, this establishes the #1 welterweight. Even though you have Keith Thurman out there, he has more belts. I think the winner of this fight might be able to beat him, but we can't count Keith Thurman out. He's a hell of a fighter. This is just my personal opinion. That is the tale of the tape. Let me know what you guys think of this matchup. I think it's great for boxing. I'm glad Kell Brook did decide to fight his mandatory, since he didn't have a problem fighting previous mandatories. And this is a fight that the public wanted. And he sounds confident. I seen on his social media the other day, he said, "You made a big mistake, boy." Errol Spence is saying, "I don't even know what a chocolate brownie is, but you're going to see who's the truth. Man down, man down." Good banter, good back and forth. And this also, I give credit to Errol Spence Jr. for being willing to travel overseas. Especially Gabe Rosado just fought Martin Murray. Sometimes you fight in hostile territory, you got to deal with that crowd, and sometimes you have to deal with unfair judging, but that shows a level of confidence that he's not really worried about that. He's a fighter, and his job is to fight, so he's not worried about unfair judging or not being able to win convincingly enough. So it remains to be seen who will win. This is definitely a 50-50 fight, and a great fight for the division, and most importantly, a great fight for boxing. Will be on SHOWTIME in the US. Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you share the video, like the video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.